paradrama tales.
In my family, when a husband dies, the widow has exactly 40 days to follow him into the afterlife. They call it love, loyalty, tradition. But I know what it really is. A countdown to silence, and my mother was next in line. I grew up in a family where love came with a deadline, where every wedding carried a quiet clause, unspoken but understood. If he dies, so do you. They dressed it up in poetry, eternal devotion, undying loyalty. But even as a child, I could see the fear behind the words. My mother never said it out loud, but I saw it in the way her hands trembled when my father sneezed, the way her eyes lingered on his gray hairs, like she was counting down the years she had left. She'd brush my hair at night and tell me stories about how beautiful Aunt Ling looked in her white dress on the day of her departure, how brave Aunt May was for almost making it to the bus station. But her voice would tighten, and I could tell she wasn't talking about love. She was talking about survival. My dad was a good man by most standards, quiet, hardworking. But in our family, even good men came with expiration dates for their wives. When I was 7, I watched my Aunt Ling drink poison at her husband's 40-day memorial. Her mother-in-law held her wrist to make sure she swallowed every drop. The cup was porcelain with painted flowers. The poison smelled like almonds, and it took her 20 minutes to die. The younger kids were told to watch to learn about duty. I didn't understand it fully then, but something in me recoiled. Something whispered, "This isn't right." Still, I played along like we all did, smiling through ceremonies and sipping tea laced with expectation. My mother, though she was preparing. I didn't know it then, but even as she smiled for family photos, she was building an escape plan. She started waking me at 3 a.m. to teach me things no 15-year-old should know: how to forge my father's signature, how to transfer money through ghost accounts, how to vanish. At first I thought it was a game, something to bond us. But then she showed me the videos, grainy footage of women drinking from cups, collapsing, being buried in silk dresses. She called it her recipe collection. That was when I understood she wasn't planning to escape alone. She was going to make sure I never had to drink from that cup either. My childhood was a mixture of school and secret codes, algebra and aliases, birthday parties and burner phones. No one on the outside ever suspected. To them, we were a normal family. But inside those walls, tradition was a ticking bomb, and my mother was defusing it one forged document at a time. We didn't talk about love the way other families did. We talked about exit plans, safe houses, and the lies women were forced to swallow with tea. And even then I thought maybe we could outrun it, until the day Anna showed up barefoot and bleeding on our doorstep, pregnant and marked for death. That was the day everything changed. The first time I noticed something was truly wrong. I was 7, and Aunt Ling's hands were shaking as she held the porcelain cup. It was white with blue flowers, always the same design. Her mother-in-law held her wrist steady and unflinching, as if making sure she didn't dare spill a drop. She said nothing, but her grip spoke volumes. That image stuck with me like a splinter. I remember watching Aunt May try to escape on day 38, swollen with pregnancy, sobbing at the bus station before Uncle Ling's brothers dragged her back. They told her the baby could serve her husband in the afterlife too. I didn't understand what that meant, but the way my mom looked away told me enough. Every story they told us as kids about devotion, sacrifice, eternal love, it was all dressed up control. A system to keep women obedient in life and silent in death. My mom would brush my hair and whisper things like, "It's beautiful, isn't it? How wives love their husbands so much they can't live without them." But I saw the way her eyes would dart to the kitchen knives when Dad had a cough, or how she'd quietly cry into a towel in the laundry room after funerals. Sometimes she'd just sit at the table staring at the drawer where she kept our passports, her fingers tapping rhythmically like she was counting down to something I couldn't yet name. When Dad had his heart attack and survived, everything shifted. That night, Mom started waking me at 3 a.m. for lessons. First it was how to copy his signature perfectly. Then, how to move money around without raising red flags. We learned about identity changes, about which states had lax ID laws, which bus routes ran closest to the Mexican border. Just in case, she'd say, but we both knew it wasn't really for me. She was preparing for her own countdown. She even had a secret hard drive, encrypted, password protected, labeled as a recipe collection. Inside were years of hidden footage. Widows in white, ceremonies with crying children in the background, grainy clips of women collapsing in front of family altars, always after the tea. She made me study the videos like they were educational tapes. "See Aunt Lou's funeral," she'd whisper. "Notice how the coffin barely moves when they carry it." She wasn't in it. That's when I learned about the underground network, a secret sisterhood that had been quietly saving women for 2 decades. They faked deaths, used hospital-grade sedatives to slow heart rates, bribed doctors for forged certificates, created new lives in cities far away. My mom wasn't just preparing to run, she was already a part of something bigger, something rebellious, something powerful. And while the rest of the family rehearsed ceremonies and bought floral cups, she was teaching me the language of escape. Words like peaceful passing meant success. She fought till the end meant suspicion. And when she whispered beautiful ceremony, it meant someone needed help with documents. That was our reality, coded, encrypted, and laced with danger. But the scariest part wasn't the poison or the countdown. It was that no one outside our house seemed to think any of it was wrong. That's how deep the tradition ran, how carefully it was disguised, and I didn't realize how much it had shaped me until the day Anna knocked on our door, barefoot, bruised, and ready to fight. When Anna showed up at our door, it wasn't with a plan to run. It was with fire in her eyes and a grip on my mother's hands that made both of us stop breathing. She was barefoot, her feet torn open from walking across town, after slipping past the guards at my grandmother's house. They'd taken everything from her, her phone, her ID, even her shoes to keep her from escaping like Aunt May once tried to. But Anna didn't come to disappear. She came to fight. She stood in our hallway, shaking bruises on her wrists, red marks on her throat, one hand protectively on her pregnant belly. She didn't ask for sympathy. She asked for strategy. My mom pulled the curtain shut, ushered her inside, and the moment Anna sat down, she started answering questions who had the keys, who was watching her when they planned to begin the ceremony. It was like she'd been waiting to be asked. Everything she said confirmed the worst. They had already bought the poison cup, marked day 40 in red ink, and started making her choose her funeral dress. They were preparing to kill her and making her help. My mother moved quickly. She grabbed the encrypted phone, fired off messages to the network. Coded phrases like garden needs, tending and bringing dessert, flew out into the dark. But then Anna said the one thing we didn't expect: she didn't want to run. She wanted to stay. She wanted to break the tradition from the inside. I remember how quiet the room got when she said that. My mother looked at her like she was both brave and insane. Defiance gets you killed, she warned. But Anna was unshakable. She'd already accepted the risk. She just needed help making it count. For the next 2 hours we planned. Anna would return before they noticed her missing. She'd play the obedient widow act, like she'd accepted her fate. Meanwhile, we would work behind the scenes. We gave her a burner phone, taught her how to hide it in her purse lining. My mom wrote down safe words and coded phrases she could use with other women during family visits. The network started activating layers we'd never used before. Aunt Lou's dead sister sent recipes for compounds that mimicked death. A cousin at the courthouse began preparing alternate death certificates. A widow from another city wired funds through a maze of accounts. I built 3 fake identities for Anna, each one with a full backstory and travel plan just in case. But things started to unravel when someone spotted Anna near our house. The timeline moved up. Day 35 instead of 40. We lost 5 days we desperately needed. Then the family decided to make the ceremony public in the temple with over 200 relatives. No chaos to hide in. No last-minute switches. We were trapped in plain sight. I remember thinking maybe this was too big. Maybe Anna had aimed too high. But then something shifted. My grandmother assigned Anna to help prepare the poison herself, probably as a twisted form of loyalty test. But she didn't realize that Anna had already recruited her strongest ally yet. Uncle Jimmy's mother, the woman who'd watched 12 daughters-in-law die, and who for the first time wanted to see one live. It's strange how rebellion can hide in the smallest things, in a porcelain vial, in a wink from an old woman, in a handshake held just a second too long. Uncle Jimmy's mother, Anna's mother-in-law, had spent decades watching young women die, 12 to be exact. She'd stood quietly at each ceremony, hands folded, lips pressed together, never saying a word. But something about Anna, maybe the pregnancy, maybe the fire in her eyes, unlocked something in her. When my grandmother assigned Anna to help prepare the poison on day 21, we knew it was a test. They wanted to see if she'd flinch if she'd try to swap ingredients or stall. But what they didn't know was that Uncle Jimmy's mother had already made a duplicate key to the poison cabinet, had already chosen her side. Anna moved through the preparation like she was sleepwalking, deliberate, calm, deadly. Grandmother stood beside her the entire time, watching every step, as Anna crushed bitter almonds, mixed ingredients with precision, poured the amber liquid into a glass vial, and sealed it with wax. I stood at the doorway pretending to sweep, but really, I was watching for the tiniest chance. That night, Uncle Jimmy's mother made the switch. 30 seconds was all it took. The vials were identical. The fake poison we'd developed in my high school chemistry lab, carefully matching scent and color, was now locked in the ceremonial cabinet. We thought we were finally ahead. But then, like always, Grandmother twisted the knife. She announced there would be a final test. Anna would sip the poison a day before the ceremony during sunset prayers, just enough to prove her loyalty. We hadn't planned for that. Even a sip of the real stuff could kill her, or worse, hurt the baby. I remember standing in the temple that evening, heart pounding as Anna lifted the cup. But before the liquid touched her lips, Uncle Jimmy's mother collapsed, clutching her chest in a perfectly timed performance that could have rivaled any stage actress. It wasn't a heart attack, it was cover. The distraction we didn't know we needed. The cup fell shattered across the temple floor, and in the chaos, Anna vanished. Not into the wind like we planned, but into a secret room behind the altar, a place Uncle Jimmy's mother had discovered decades ago. She didn't run, she hid, and she waited. That night she sent us a message through the network. She was going to finish this her way. She was going to drink the cup in front of everyone. She was going to die publicly and then come back. And when she did, no one would ever look at the ceremony the same way again. My mom tried to talk her out of it, begged her not to risk it, but Anna had made up her mind. She didn't want escape. She wanted truth. And for truth to matter, the entire family had to see it with their own eyes. So we prepared for exposure, for fallout, for revolution. Because if Anna pulled this off, the tradition would never recover. The morning of the ceremony arrived wrapped in silence. The kind of silence that feels too heavy to be natural. The temple was already filled with white chrysanthemums and red roses. When we got there, grief and love side by side, like this was something beautiful. Grandmother had spent the entire night preparing a new batch of poison herself, unwilling to trust anyone else after yesterday's disaster. The ceremonial cup was new, too painted with yellow lilies, this time the same shade as the ones Uncle Jimmy's first wife wore in her hair. Anna walked into the temple in a white dress, her hair pinned up with jade combs, her face pale but composed. Her hand never left her stomach. She wasn't just walking toward a ritual, she was walking into history. The guards flanked her tightly. They'd been scolded for losing her once and wouldn't risk it again. The chanting began low and traditional, but the voices were thin. Many in the family couldn't bring themselves to join in. I stood among the chorus and noticed the same thing I'd seen during rehearsal. Younger relatives mouthing the words, but making no sound. Rebellion in silence. It was growing. Anna served tea to each of Uncle Jimmy's relatives. Her movements graceful, mechanical, rehearsed. Some looked her in the eye and quickly looked away. Others gripped her hands too tightly, not knowing what they were feeling. Guilt, respect, fear. When it was time, Grandmother rose and personally carried the yellow lily cup to Anna. She held it like a crown, like proof that she still ruled this family. Anna accepted it with both hands, bowed her head slightly, and turned to face the room. Her voice was steady as she thanked Uncle Jimmy, thanked the family, spoke of honor and sacrifice. But then she kept going. She named every woman who had died before her. Not just names, but details: how Aunt Ling's hands had shaken, how Aunt May had begged, how Aunt Patricia had cried silently while holding her dress. She gave them faces, voices, stories. Grandmother shifted uncomfortably, and I saw some of the aunts begin to cry. This wasn't a ritual anymore, it was a reckoning. Then Anna drank. 3 full swallows, calm and deliberate. She placed the cup down and walked to the cushion before Uncle Jimmy's portrait. She knelt, closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed, then she started convulsing. The temple erupted into a stunned, frozen horror. It was nothing like the peaceful passing they always talked about. Her body twisted, her hands clawed at the air, and someone screamed. But Grandmother ordered everyone to stay back. "This is tradition," she snapped. 5 minutes passed. Anna stopped moving. Grandmother checked her pulse. "She's gone," she announced. "Prepare the burial." But the family didn't move. Uncle Jimmy's nephew stepped forward. "No," he said. "My wife will never die for me. It ends here." One by one, voices joined his. Defiance grew into a chorus. Grandmother screamed threats, disinheritance, exile, but it didn't matter. Then a little girl pointed and screamed. Anna's fingers moved, her eyes fluttered open. And in that moment, everything shattered. No one spoke at first. They just stared. Some dropped to their knees, whispering prayers like they were witnessing a miracle. Others backed away in fear, as if Anna were some ghost returned to haunt them. Grandmother stood frozen, her mouth open, words caught in her throat for the first time in my life. Anna rose slowly, her movements shaky but deliberate, and looked around at the faces that had gathered to bury her. Then she began to speak. Not softly, not kindly, but clearly with the voice of someone who had earned the right to be loud. She told them everything. She spoke of the network, of the women who had faked their deaths, of the bruises hidden under white dresses, of Aunt Ling's final minutes, of Aunt May begging to live for her unborn child. She named the aunts who had disappeared and the cousins who had helped them escape. Then Uncle Jimmy's mother was wheeled into the temple, her oxygen mask in place, her eyes burning with the same fierce clarity as Anna's. She confessed to helping 12 women die, and then she confessed to helping Anna live. As she spoke, the screens came to life. Videos of ceremonies, audio, of women pleading, bank records, property transfers, every hidden truth made visible. It was undeniable. It was ugly. It was liberation. The doors were locked. Our network had planned that too. No one would leave until the truth was heard. When they were finally opened, the family poured out, some silent, some sobbing, some arguing. But none of them were the same. Anna didn't run. She disappeared, but not far. She hid behind the altar that night, waiting. Then, as dawn broke, she walked out of the temple, not as a widow, but as a survivor. We drove her to a safe house, an apartment above a flower shop, with neutral walls and clean sheets. A nurse waited. The baby was safe. Anna would need time, but she would heal. And then she would vanish again, this time, into a life of her own choosing. Before she left, she recorded one last message. Not for us. For the girls who hadn't been born yet. For the daughters who might have otherwise grown up learning how to fake their own deaths, or memorize border bus schedules. In the video, she held her ultrasound. She smiled softly and said, "She's free." No signature, no explanation. Just 3 words that meant everything. That night, we launched the evidence packages. They were sent to every family member under 40. Not to the media, not to the police, just to the ones who still had time to choose differently. Some denied everything, some called us liars, but others, so many others asked for more: names, locations, a chance to know if their mothers, sisters, wives were still alive. By the next morning, the tradition was broken, not erased, but cracked. And cracks, once they start, have a way of spreading. Grandmother tried to regroup to control the narrative, but it was too late. Her words rang hollow, her power dissolved. What once felt eternal now felt like dust. Anna had changed everything, not by escaping, but by standing in the fire and refusing to burn. The weeks after Anna's resurrection felt like the world had tilted on its axis. Family gatherings became battlegrounds of whispered arguments and tearful confessions. Some aunts refused to prepare the burial for a woman who wasn't dead. Some uncles argued over property rights that were never truly theirs. Daughters began asking questions they were never meant to ask. Sons looked at their mothers and wondered why silence had been expected for so long. Grandmother retreated to her house, surrounded only by those too scared or too stubborn to admit the truth had finally broken through. Her once commanding voice now echoed off empty walls. Her authority had always been built on fear, and fear no longer held. Anna disappeared into a new identity, one we'd carefully crafted: Catherine Haney, a librarian widow from California. She vanished like smoke, and we made sure no one could follow. The last time I saw her, she was boarding a bus in a brown wig and thick glasses, holding a backpack that contained her future. She didn't cry. Neither did we. There was no need. We'd already said everything that mattered the moment she rose from that temple floor. Our home became a waypoint for women in transition, some from our family, others from distant branches who had heard the whispers. We no longer hid what we were doing. My mother coordinated safe houses, reunions, resources. I taught others how to build identities, not to deceive, but to survive. Anna's story spread like wildfire. Not on the news, not online, but through whispered stories between cousins, letters folded inside, recipe books, glances exchanged at funerals that suddenly felt less certain. And still, not everyone escaped. Some women were caught trying to run. Others never made contact in time. Their names became part of our archive. Their stories added fuel to our resolve. We held a quiet celebration on the one-year anniversary of Anna's resurrection. 14 women, who were supposed to be dead, gathered in Mrs. Haney's basement, passing around baby photos and laughter like wine. Anna couldn't attend, it was still too risky, but she sent a video. Her daughter had taken her first steps. She worked at a local library. She looked older, softer, freer. The tradition still exists in whispers and corners, but its spine has been broken. The fear is gone, replaced by questions, by resistance, and by memory. I kept a photo on my desk at college, Anna holding her ultrasound, because it reminded me that the biggest rebellions sometimes look like a woman choosing to live. That survival, when denied for so long, becomes a revolution. We inherited death. We chose life. And now there are girls in our family who will never have to learn about forged signatures or border routes or sedatives that slow the heartbeat. They'll grow up knowing the truth, not because it was whispered to them, but because someone like Anna stood up and screamed it in a temple full of silence. And for that, the world will never be the same. If this story moved you, made you think, or reminded you of the power of quiet resistance, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We share real, raw, and emotional stories like this every week. Stories of survival, of truth, of people standing up when silence was easier. Hit that like button if you believe traditions should serve love, not fear. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment below. We read every single one. Your thoughts, your voice, your perspective matter here. Because this isn't just a story. It's a conversation. And you're part of it. Turn on notifications so you never miss what comes next. Because trust me, we're just getting started.